Hello friends, my name is Kishan and welcome you in this video tutorial. In this video tutorial we are going to discuss about the very important feature in Hibernate is called hbm2ddl auto. So what are the expected value we can specify here, and what is the expected value in the production mode. So those are the key points we are going to discuss in this video tutorial. So here I have prepared a slide for the same, and let's go through the slide. Now list of the possible values are for hbm2ddl auto. First you have a create, then update, validate, create, drop. These are the four possible value you can apply for this property. Now let's have some little more description about these options. Suppose if you specify create, that means this will create the schema, the data previously present. If there is any data present previously, then this is gonna lost, because when you specify the value as a create, then the table is going to drop and that will be recreated. So if you had saved some previously data, then those data is going to lost. Now second option, you can specify update. So this will update the schema with the given values, right? If there is a table, then that's fine. If there is no table, then table will be created. If you add some new property in your entity class, then corresponding column will be added. If you remove some property from your entity class, then corresponding column will not be removed. That will have to do manually, right? So that's all about the update. Now in this case, in the case of update, if you have some previously saved data, then of course that data will be written. Now third option, you can have a validate. This will validate that schema. It makes no change in the database. This is very important point, right? So you might choose validate for the production mode, or better you don't specify any value for hbm2ddl in the production mode. Either you can specify validate or nothing. Now fourth options, you have a create, drop. So this will create the schema with destroying the data previously present if there. It also drops the database schema when the session factory is closed. Okay. Now some of the key points which I have listed over here. In case of update, if a schema is not present as in the DB, then the schema is created, as I said earlier. Now in case of validate, if a schema does not exist in the database, it is not created. Instead it will throw an error saying that table not found, right? In case of create, drop, a schema is not dropped on the closing the session. It drops only on closing the session factory, right? Now there are some very important key points. In theory, you can set hbm2ddl auto update to update your database with changes to your model, but I would not trust that on for the production, right? Production mode you cannot specify update, right? So this will make some changes on the database side automatically, right? So and this is not good for production mode. Therefore, for our production database, do not set hibernate hbm2ddl auto. The default is to make no database changes. Instead, we manually create an SQL script, right? Update a script, and that applies changes from one version to next version, right? So you will have a release in the incremental order, right, for different versions, and we do not allow Hibernate to change database schema in the production, right? Rather you can choose one of the database migration tool like Liquibase or Flyway, and there and DB script you can write manually, or that can be written by the DBA. And for database versioning or database evolvement, right, you can choose one of the very famous tool like Liquibase and Flyway, right? And this will maintain all the versions of the database, and this will apply all the changes in the incremental fashion, right? So that's all I have wanted to discuss theoretically, but we are going to look these things through practical example as well, right? So here I have created a example. If you would have watched my previous video, there we have learned how to perform the CRUD operation, and this example we had created from scratch. So most of the files I have copied from here itself. So let me show you. If you look into the pom.xml, it's pretty straightforward. We have added two dependencies. First dependency we have for MySQL, and second dependency MySQL connector, and second dependency we have added for the hibernate, right? So this will add all the basic jars which is required to develop the hibernate application, right? And we are using the latest version, that is 5.2.11. Now we have a hibernate configuration file, and there we have a lot of property which is related to the database, and I have registered my entity class as well. And here you can see the property hbm2ddl auto. I have given the update as of now. Now we have an entity class which is, I'm telling this entity class is binded with this employee table, right? And we have specified the column name for every property, right? And employee IDs we have declared as a primary key, and this is auto generated, right? And you can see there we have applied some constraint as well. Length we have specified 20, null label false, this will apply the not null constraint. And this is pretty straightforward, right? Now if you go to client program, then here I have written first create employee, right? So here create employee, here basically we are trying to insert a record into the database. And second method we have a get employee by ID. There I am passing employee ID as 1, and we are trying to fetch data from the database. It's pretty straightforward, right? Now first of all, what I'll do, we'll start from the first expected value, that is nothing but the create, right? So here I go and specify the hbm2ddl value as create. So in this case we are using the database as a test, right? So if you go to the database, here you can see there is no table as of now. If I run this application, then table is gonna create, right? If your table is pre-existing, then that will be deleted and that will be recreate. So I can show you through the Eclipse console itself how hibernate is going to trigger SQL query. So here you can see the DDL query saying that drop table if exists employee table, right? So first of all, hibernate will do the cleanup operation. If this table exists, then that will be dropped. So if you had some previously some data in this table, that is gonna lost, right? And now hibernate has created this table based on the specified metadata, and finally insert query has been triggered and one record is inserted saying that employee is created with ID 1. If you go to the database and refresh it, then this is showing you one record inserted. If you run this project again, then again this table is gonna drop and recreate it. So that's the meaning of create. So this is this option is very good for the experimental purpose, right? If you make some changes and you want if you make some changes on your entity class, and those changes you want to see in the database, right? And you want to redrop the table, then in that case it's good. Now if you go and nothing will get changed, because that is dropped, table is dropped and recreated again. So that's what you're looking, only one record, right? So that's all about the create. Now if I specify the value as update, right? So update is not gonna drop this table, right? So update will keep the table as it is, and this will insert one more new record. So here my update case, what I'm going to do, so I'm going to specify ID as 2, and here I'm going to specify as shown, and keep the salary as 50,000 itself. And if I run this application, then in the case of update, if you had previously some data in the table, that will be as it is. So here you can see hibernate at this time did not drop the table, and hibernate has just triggered insert query and saying that employee is created with ID 2. If you go and refresh, then you'll see one more entry, right? So if you don't want to lose the previous data, whatever you have in the table, and if you don't want to drop the table itself, right, drop the schema, then you can go for the update, right? So in this case, if you add some more columns, more property over here, so corresponding column will be added automatically, right? So if there is already some data and if you add some property, then you cannot apply null level equal to false. So in beginning you do not apply these things, right? So what will happen, column will be added for this, and null for a pre-existing record null value will be inserted, and all null value you can replace with the some value, and after that you can apply null level false, right? So these things you will have to keep in mind. Now next value we have something is called validate, right? Validate. So validate is not gonna make any change on the database side, right? So in the case of validate, you will have to create this table. This table should have created by some DB script or manually, else this will throw an error. So if I go and drop this table, right? So let's go for the first positive scenario, right? Barry, right? And if I run this example, then this will work fine because database table is pre-existing, right? So here you can see database table is pre-existing. If I go and drop this table, and in this case you cannot expect hibernate should create table for you, and that's the meaning of validate. This will throw an error saying that you can see saying that this table is missing, right? So this will throw you an error. Now fourth option, we have a create drop, right? So here you can have a create drop. In this case, hibernate will create a table for you, and after end of the program table will be dropped as well. But as we discussed in the slide, once you close the session factory, then that table is gonna drop. So what I'll do, I'll go to my utility class, and here I'll make one method, static method, public static void, I would say close session factory. So close session factory method I'm gonna create, and here you can check if session factory not null, then you go inside and you can close this guy, right? Because once you close the session factory, then your database will be clean, right? Now what I'll go to the client program. Here what I'll do, sorry, not here, but in main method we call the create method, then get employee, and here I would say hibernate util dot close session factory, right? Oh, sorry, close session factory, right? Now if I run this program, then see what will happen. Now nothing in the database. Now table will be created on the fly, and so here you can see, so table is created first, saying that table first dropped and then created from scratch. Now one record is inserted, with the primary key 1, and we are just selecting data. So here we are passing the primary key as a 2, right? So there is no record with primary key 2. If you pass 1, then previously inserted data will be returned, and saying that employee does not exist with the provided ID. And finally you can see table is dropped. So if you go to the database, nothing will find, right? Nothing will find, right? So this is very good for the experimental purpose. If you do some database operation, and end of the program, if you want clean slate of your schema, then this is good for that, right? So that's all I wanted to discuss in this video tutorial. I hope you enjoyed learning this video, right? So this code is very basic, which is already included in the current example, and this whatever concept we have learned in this slide, those concepts I'm gonna post on my newly created blog, that is KK Java Tutorials blogspot.com. So if you go and in couple of days I'm going to update my blog with this content what you have seen in the slide, right? So this is the blog which I have created for you guys, and all the things which we are learning in the hibernate 5